This is the story of a short but memorable trip to the French River in August 2023. Short because it was only for 3 days, and memorable for two reasons. First, it was my first time kayaking on the French River, which I'd been wanting to do for a long time. Second, I'd been invited by my daughter Megan and her boyfriend Pat to accompany them in their canoe. The booking system in French River Provincial Park is organized by zones, and you can only book 2 weeks before your arrival. You pick the number of nights you're going to spend in each zone, and when you arrive, it's basically first come, first serve for any given site. For this trip, we chose to spend the first night in the 600s zone, the next in the 700s zone, which covers the open waters of Georgian Bay, and the third back in the 600s zone. So remember when I suggested it's guesswork on the sites? Well, we were getting nervous on our first day as every site we saw was taken. We ended up by taking the last but one available, and it turned out to be really nice. A quiet bay off the main channel, but no bears, which I found to be disappointing. My daughter, not so much. I bring my DSLR camera on paddling trips in case I'm lucky enough to get some telephoto shots of wildlife. On this trip, Megan spotted a bald eagle on the shoreline. We kept both our boats very quiet, and we were able to follow the eagle along the shore. I was able to snap some photos with my camera, and I'm super happy with the results. It's now Friday, August 25th, I think, and we're at our second site, down a couple little portages into what is Fox Island over there. So this is straight up into it. We saw this site 7:24. We got to around 1 o'clock and thought, oh, this is great, but we said, well, we got time, there's no one else around really, so we checked out one down the island here and it wasn't as good, so we came back to this. Here are Megan's hiking boots, drying out because she slipped on the rocks getting out of the canoe and went full right into her waist. So fortunately not hurt, just wet. Our campsite for the second night ended up also being our campsite for the third night. On the second day, we ended up with some fairly significant winds, and even though I was comfortable paddling through these in my kayak, Pat was not as comfortable in the canoe. So we decided to hunker down for our third night. I told Pat I really respect him for making the safe decision, not the least because he's got my precious cargo with him. So we just crossed over into the north part of Fox Island, so cutting back over, and we went through this area, and it's pretty clear this was a forest fire area because all the old growth trees are gone, and we got some new growth. We didn't know it at the time, but this was the area of the fire known as Perry Sound 33 in 2018 that basically decimated the area. 12,000 hectares were affected and the fire burned for several weeks before being extinguished. As we passed through it in 2023, we could see some small growth, but there were no trees to speak of and maybe a couple of birds, and it was very eerie. And you look on the right side where there was no fire, all lush, and then on the left it's all barren. And I guess, right, the fire wouldn't have crossed over this water. It's wide enough, but that looks really spooky. We're in Fox Lake, which you could see the ravages of the forest fire again, just sparse trees here and there, a lot of dead wood. Still beautiful in its own way, you know, because you know it's going to come back. Nature will find a way. Although we all know kayaks are superior to canoes, I will give canoes one advantage, and that's when portaging. I avoid portaging whenever I can. Why? In a kayak, you have to pack your gear into many small bags in order to take advantage of the interior space. So when you have to take everything out to portage, it's a pain. Whereas with a canoe, you can pack fewer larger bags. Secondly, canoes have a yoke where kayaks don't, so you can't throw a kayak on your back and hope to see where you're going. On this trip, we had 4 portages in total, 1 on the first day and 3 on the third and last day. The third day was super challenging, not so much because of the distance. 190 meters was the longest one, but one of those portages was up a hill, across a rocky pathway, and then a steep decline down the other side, and it was very physically challenging, for me anyways.